So today is the 21st of April, and I thought I'd do a piece because this is the time of year when people think about moving house and so on, and I thought I'd do a piece. I'm just messing with my iPad trying to get it up and running. I thought I'd do a piece about surveyors, because people are moving houses at the moment, or they will be. It's a lovely sunny spring that we're starting to have now in the UK, excuse me, and that gets lots of people thinking about moving house. Now, I've got a reasonable experience of surveyors. I'm over 50, and I don't look it, and I've got a reasonable experience of surveyors now, and they are, I'd like to say they're a mixed bunch, excuse me, but I'm not sure they really are. There are differences in the UK between Scotland and England, England and Wales, but there are also similarities. So I'm just going to pick one at random and give you a view of it and move on. But first I want to talk about one of the things they definitely have in common, and that is that there's usually three types of report that you get. One is a basic report. And back in the day, I mean, a basic report was 70 quid or something, going back to the 80s. And now it's about £200 or something. Between £200 and £300 you'll get a basic report. There's usually an intermediary one, and that's about £500 to £750. And then there'll be a super duper report that is possibly over £1,000 sterling to get done. So I've made some notes here which are detailed and really important, but here's what I noted down. I thought about it, and I thought for quite a while about how to characterize these reports. Okay, the basic report is full of crap, right? The more detailed report, the intermediary, is full of detailed crap. And the top flight super duper report is full of expensive detailed crap. Now, that's a terrible thing to say because these are professionals who are, they've gone through some training and they've got a degree and they've got loads of experience and on some kind of register and all that stuff. The reports are mainly crap. And the main reason why I say they're crap is because you actually want as a buyer a certain thing out of a report. You need to go back to first principles. What is it you want as a buyer, or maybe even a seller? What is it somebody would want out of a report? They want to know if there's anything that will make this house a rubbish house to buy. Is there something absolutely pants about this house that means they shouldn't buy it? Obviously they've seen it. They've seen it's a 3-bed semi. They've seen it's a 7-bed big mansion looking house. They've seen it, it's a 3-story townhouse and it was built only 3 years ago or something. Well, they've seen it's a little old cottage in the country. Look, they've seen all that for themselves. They really want, when you think about it, they want anything that's unseen. Now, the first one I'll pull out of the air is in Scotland. And the basics apply. But there are some other flowery bits on top. In Scotland, if you want a mortgage or something, let's say you're selling a house. The person who, in Scotland, you have to get the vendor has to get the survey done. It's meant to cut out multiple surveys. I don't think it's worked quite as intended, and it's always the same. People can get around rules. It turns out that the survey goes out of date. So as a vendor in Scotland, you've got something like 3 months. Now, houses have been really slow moving. So the reality is that you can find yourself with an out-of-date survey. Or, if you think about it, if it only lasts for 3 months, a buyer would have to come along within the first week and decide to buy it. And then the mortgage provider that they go to would have to be getting on really quick with it, and what happens in practice is the buyer may find it convenient to make the mortgage provider delay a bit, or to say the mortgage provider is delaying a bit, and between them they'll concoct this delay. which means that in practice, nobody's going to actually come around to see a house in the first week. It might take 6 weeks, it might take 2.5 months. If it's anywhere after the first or second week of the 3-month period you've got for the survey's lifespan, the survey is going to go out of life, as it were, probably before the whole thing gets concluded. That being the case, the mortgage provider will not sign off on the mortgage. Okay, they'll say it's out of date. I mean, you know, for all you know, that surveyor surveyed that building 10 years ago for the last buyer, and they're just rehashing the same thing, so out of date. Okay. So you end up getting a new survey, and what I faced was a situation where I was given the impression in Scotland that you could just ring up any surveyor that was accredited and get a price, and if it was the best price, they'd come out and do it, and so on. I didn't think twice about it. And the guy that came out to survey didn't mention this fact that I'm about to mention, and nobody else mentioned it. There's a list that the mortgage providers have. And if that surveyor is not on that list, it doesn't matter that he's accredited, that he's properly part of the association. None of that matters. All that matters is he's not on that special little list. So you get him to come out because he's the best price. Then, of course, he omits to tell you that he's not on that list because he would. Because otherwise you wouldn't get his services. And then, of course, it's in the mortgage provider's interest to hold out then until his 3-month mortgage lifespan expires. And then they can say to you, the buyer can say to you, well, that's out of date anyway, so you might as well get somebody now who's on the list. Yeah? And so you're manoeuvred into a position. And they get you to pay for this extra fee again, another 300 quid or whatever it was. Okay, back to generalities though, and this is true for the whole of the UK, and I would imagine in other areas too. You generally find that it's quite a closed world, the world of surveyors. There's not that many of them about, and most estate agents and mortgage providers will go to 1 or 2 in a particular area. There's actually, it's very close to a cartel, is what I'm telling you. So here's some of the things they have in common. They never look underneath something. They're not interested. They never lift the carpet up. I once had a hard floor which, in order to get underneath it, you would have to just lift up a couple of little strips that held down a hatch. Then you'd undo 4 screws, and then the hatch would come up and you could look on. I gave the guy detailed instructions on how to do this. He could not be less interested. I can almost, in retrospect, having experienced all this, hear him chuckling as he read my instructions and going, let me go on to the important stuff. Your house is basically surveyed, buyer or seller, it's surveyed from the street. It is probably surveyed, its value is probably found by the surveyor by looking at our property or myproperty.com or something, by looking at other properties for sale in the area. That is him. He has 80 or 90% done his valuing job, the value, based on all that. And he's not left his seat at home in his little office. So don't think that he hasn't got to within a couple of thousand, a few thousand, 5,000, 10,000, a couple of percent, the value of your property before he even comes out. And don't think he hasn't got the survey 65, 75% written before he comes out, because he has. If it's a 3-bed semi, he's done one before, he's got his survey out. Okay? So what this surveyor did in this particular house, didn't touch the hatch, didn't go underneath the floor. Even though it was really obvious to him what to do, and I laid out, no, they're not interested. They leave all the lights on everywhere. Because obviously you might say, oh, it's such a rush, they just didn't have time to turn them off. Baloney. They leave the lights on so you think they've been everywhere and done a thorough job. So your loft ladder will be down, the light will be on the loft. Do you think that means he was roping around, poking around the loft for half an hour? No, he wasn't. He might have gone. He might have got a personal flashlight out. The chances of him actually walking around on your loft, if it has a completely decent floor, maybe he stood in it for a moment. do not think. There's no point. Now, he probably will take a few pictures. These days especially, everybody's phone's got a camera. So basically everyone's got a camera and a recording device on them. For his own benefit, he'll take a few pictures, which he will be able to use later if there's some issue arises. He'll be able to refer to those pictures you see and those videos that he took. And don't think they don't, but that's the most time-consuming thing they would do. That's why partly they prefer you not to be there. Because obviously if you're there, you won't let them video stuff. Not overtly do it. So I left all the lights on. Then there's the thing of the hatch. There was a hatch for the loft. It used a little boat hook because otherwise it's a bit high to reach. I'd used that hatch and that boat hook for 9 years. I just used the boat hook to open the hatch. You through the thing, pull it down, and there you go, you can grab it in, right? He broke it. The man was in my house for maybe 25 minutes tops, maybe quarter of an hour. How fast can you do it? I don't know. It's just a standard townhouse, row house, if you want to call it. The guy broke the hook, and he left the hook in one corner and the little broken piece on the window ledge. Right? Now, the other thing to mention about them, why do I say that the basic survey is crap, then you get a more detailed crap, and then you get super duper expensive detailed crap survey? I have known of properties where there was an actual problem, and if you inspected to any real scrutiny level the property, you would probably find the problem. I would say in general that surveyors, excuse my iPad, surveyors generally are more useful for sellers, for vendors on this basis, because they tend not to find things that aren't really staring them in the face. So, if your property, for example, had something wrong with it that was caused by an adjacent property, you are kind of, your property, the one you want to buy, you're kind of stuffed because they don't look at adjacent properties while they're looking at your property. They look at your property pretty much in isolation. They don't do any fantastic research or anything. That's what the searches and so on are for with your solicitor. So let's say, for example, your next door had collapsed drains and the water was leaking round everywhere, making the ground all sloshy, and that was weakening the ground, and therefore your building was starting to suffer subsidence. Unless the cracks are actually looking at this guy in the face, this surveyor, he's not going to mention it. All I want to say about it is that I saw such things and the solicitor nothing about it. The signs were obvious, but the solicitor said nothing about it. Right? Now, if they don't find things like that, you do begin to wonder what's their purpose. And once you realise that this goes on, and that people like me, who's not prone to avoiding arguments, I didn't even have words with him because I know it's pointless about a broken boat hook that was used to operate the hatch. I didn't even bother. Now, why didn't I bother? There's no point. I just want the goddamn report, and you can bugger off, and I'll just go on with my life. They're quite an arrogant bunch, and when you've got a power over people, this tends to come over you, this hubris. And maybe after, let's go by prime ministers, it takes about 7 to 8 years for it to happen with a prime minister. So I'm going to guess it's about the same with any senior manager or senior professional. So I'm going to say for surveyors it takes about 7 to 9 years for the hubris to set in. And then it's just like their 2-minute visit to your house, they rehash something they had from before that's for a very similar house, they switch all your lights on, and they scarper as soon as. And remember, most of that thing is written before they even go in your house, or the house that you want to buy. So that's really it. You can have a super duper hyper detailed report, and you will still have virtually no chance of any comeback in that surveyor if you find out that in a few years' time somebody had literally papered over the cracks or cemented over the subsidence breakage. Really, forget it. The guy's not going to go around measuring and find that the gaps between the bricks are 50% more in a certain position of the house or something. He's not going to do stuff like that. thus demonstrating that it's probably been filled in later and has opened up. That's not going to happen. So surveyors as a group, there's a tendency towards arrogance because basically people are so dependent on them, and because it is so much of a cartel. And I'm not saying that they're overpaid, but I'm saying that they will tailor the work they do to how much they do get paid. So when you get a surveyor's report, just more or less go, yeah. All you're looking for is that it gives you what you want out of that sale or that purchase. And if you're buying particularly, do not rely on that report to find out stuff that's wrong. Okay? You need to look into things that are wrong. You get a quiet moment in that house with a screwdriver and poke some wood. You go around sniffing. You go when you're not expected to be visiting and see if somebody's got a dehumidifier on hanging out the window. You see a big plastic trunk hanging out the window, that's a dehumidifier. And in old houses especially, that is a classic thing that people do. They spend a week before you're going to visit dehumidifying the whole property. The day that you're coming, a couple of hours before, they get rid of all that stuff into somebody's car boot or something, and the house doesn't smell damp like it normally does. All sorts of wheezes go on. It is the dirtiest, lowest market, the property market, because it is so embroiled with people's money. There's so much money involved. Morals, ethics, gone. So surveyor's reports, basically crap. You just decide what quality of crap you want and pay the appropriate amount. Thanks for watching and listening.